One of the most pressing issues in Australia is climate change. The current government acknowledges that this is a global problem, and it wants to show the world that Australia is one of the countries that take this issue seriously, and that led to the introduction and passing of the carbon tax legislation last year, with the aim to initiate emission trading scheme or ETS and cut carbon emission by 25% by 2015. Tonight, we will take a look at Australian livestock industry through molecular biologist's eyes. Dr. Parwinder Kaur, who is a research associate at Centre of Legumes in Mediterranean Agriculture or CLIMA at UWA, she is doing a research on developing methodologies to enable breeders to identify environmentally friendly subterranean clover and discover the genes controlling this trait in this species. What is happening in Australian agricultural and livestock industry, and how the subterranean clover plays its role in contributing to climate change problem? We will explore that together. Join me in the studio right now. It's Dr. Parwinder. Good evening and welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Raya. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And hello, everyone who's listening to the show.
Yeah, lovely to have you here.
Thank
you. Firstly, let's talk about yourself a little bit. Tell us about your journey in academia and how did you find your way to Perth?
Oh, that's a very long question.
You can take one by one.
Okay, yeah. Well, I come from India. And that's my home country, and I was born and educated there in India. Well, my dad was in army, and we lived in all the major cities of India most of the time. But we, like my uncles and my dad, like coming from a countryside. So we used to go school holidays to the countryside, to our village, and actually spend time with my uncles and how the agriculture is practiced there and all that sort of stuff. And at that time, like I was really amazed to see people, farmers, like mainly the farmer community, who actually feed the whole world basically. It's really tough for them to survive and feed their own family. They don't make much profit out of the agriculture, and there are a lot of issues which they need to deal on day-to-day basis. So I sort of developed that interest at that time that I really want to do something for this community. And that's how like I got interested into this area. I wanted to study agriculture when I grew up, and and I pursued onto it, and I got into a Bachelor of Agriculture Sciences, and I did a four-year degree in which in the last year you sort of choose an area where you want to go, and because agriculture is very, very vast subject. So in the final year, when I was given that choice that which particular area of agriculture you want to go in, I chose plant protection. So that's the area where you learn methods, or the area which actually deals with the plant protection sort of side. So plants have got, danger from insect pests, as well as they have also problems, diseases. So that was the area I went into. And then after doing my honors, I got really interested into insect pests, and I was like, yes, I want to study more about these things and how they work, and how the interaction happen with the plant. And because there are a lot of useful insects as well. On the other side, there are a lot of pests, which we all always talk about. So I did a master's after my bachelor's in entomology. Entomology is the field which mainly focuses on insect pests. And after that, I was working with silkworms, which was quite interesting insect, and it is a useful insect, not a harmful one. After finishing my my master's in entomology, and then I was looking for like some hands-on experience with the disease part as well, and wanted to understand more about that interaction in the plant and how the plant actually behaves, and that's where I came to Australia for. So I was applying for different scholarships all over the world, and I found UWA. It is one of the top universities in Australia, especially in life and agricultural sciences. It is ranked as #1 in Australia. So, and that's my area. So I was like, I just kept my fingers crossed if I get through. And yes, I was very fortunate that I won an international postgraduate research scholarship, and which actually paid for all my tuition fees, as well as it covered for my living expenses to come and live here in Perth and do my degree. So yeah, I was very fortunate, and I came here, and it's been 5 years, and yeah, wonderful place to be.
Not just fortunate, I believe. You've got something there.
Yes, I mean, I really worked hard for it, and and it paid off. So yeah, it's been 5 years, and yeah, wonderful time here in Perth at UWA. Great place to be.
Yeah,
and to be associated with research there. Yes,
and at the most prestigious university.
Yes, it is, of course, no doubts about that.
Yeah. Now, tell us a bit more about what you do. What is it that you do as a molecular biologist? I'm really curious.
Oh, yeah, it is. Molecular biology is like sort of a very emerging area now. Like a lot more going on in this area with all this. You might have heard about gene cloning and GMOs and all that sort of stuff, and basically gene mapping and doing the genome sequencing and all that sort of stuff. So it's basically an area where you look at the molecular basis of the biological activity that happens. So it deals with all the interactions, understanding of all the interactions which are happening within the cell, at the cell level, at the DNA level, at the RNA level.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's quite like really fine things you look at.
Yeah. Now I can imagine that image actually come into my mind, like someone in a white gown working in the lab,
yes,
and doing shaking stuff.
Yeah, I do that every day. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Now, being a country girl and spend a lot of time in rural northern India, I suppose that you must have many chances to be in rural Western Australia as well. Now, tell us which part in WA that you like visiting and why.
Oh, WA itself, like it's a really beautiful place and beautiful weather, I should say. And yes, I had a lot of opportunities during my PhD to go to different parts like Wongan Hills and towards like where all the canola farming happens, because I was working with canola at that time. So go collect samples and spend a lot of time with colleagues and just chill out in the fields. Like I was amazed to see how big is the field sizes in here. Like we got really small land holdings in India, especially in North India.
Yeah.
And here it's like really big, like as far as you can see all those yellow canola flowers. It's beautiful. And yes, it's I like going towards that side and looking at those yellow flowers and big fields, and especially Margaret River area. Yeah.
Margaret
down
River.
South, that's my favorite.
It's lovely down there.
It is.
Yeah, and that is really common for people who visit Western Australia, and they're all amazed by the huge scale of landscape, and everybody knows anyway that WA is just one state, but it's just as big as different countries in the world. So
yes, that's true.
Yeah. And now let's go into detail about your current project. Tell us, what does it entail?
Oh, my current project. You might have heard this pasture crop, which is a mainstream pasture in Australia. Subterranean clover, or commonly it is called a subclover.
Okay.
It is, as I said, it is the mainstream pasture, and you would believe it's grown over 22 million hectares in Australia, even more than that. Yeah. And it is a great crop. It's got a good nutritive value when the cattle and the sheep feed on it. And cattle and sheep industry is a big industry in Australia. So it really it does make a difference to have a really good pasture crop in Australia on which these cattle and sheep feed on. So there are two problems with subclover. There are two issues which we have identified in the past. The one is a lot of gas emissions. It causes a lot of burping in the sheep, you should say.
Okay.
Yeah, and that burping is basically caused when they feed on this pasture. When it's digested in their rumen, in their stomach, there's a lot of fermentation happening, and because of that, there's a lot of energy is lost as methane gas.
Okay.
And that is through burping of the sheep.
Wow.
So we're trying to control their burps.
Wow.
So we're trying to identify the genes which are actually associated with that particular trait of methane emission. And it's not just myself. I'm a molecular biologist, but it's a big team of people working. Like we've got Department of Agriculture, of Food and Agriculture working. We have got plant breeders from there working on it, and my boss is also a plant breeder. He's a geneticist. And then we've got animal biology people, because we don't know everything about sheep. So, and different tests which we need to do for this particular trait. We are doing very close association work with the animal biology people, and we also got a Japanese interested into this. So we've got a collaboration with a Kazusa DNA Research Institute in Japan, near Tokyo.
Very diverse team.
It is a very diverse thing. So it's not just a work of one person. It's a big team, and it's very multidisciplinary thing, and everybody comes together. And yes, we can definitely achieve it.
Mm.
And another thing, another problem there is the isoflavone. It's a chemical which is produced by this subclover plant, and it causes sterility in sheep. So it's a very serious issue as well. And so that was the priority, and we've got quite good success in that. We've already given a genetic map. The first ever genetic map of subclover has been given by this team already, and we've identified the genes which are actually associated with isoflavone chemicals being produced by this crop. So now our next target is like methane. We're trying to achieve it.
You're listening to The Scope with Dr. Parwinder Kaur, a research associate for Center for Legumes in Mediterranean Agriculture, or CLIMA, from UWA. Let's have a little break. You're on 6EBA 95.3 FM World Radio, broadcasting in your language. Welcome back to The Scope. We are interviewing Dr. Parwinder Kaur from UWA about her work related to Australian livestock industry, an issue that affecting climate change in Australia. Surely, the way grazing is practiced in Australia is a big problem. If your work was successful, how much carbon emission that Australia will potentially be cut down?
Okay, very interesting question. Well, you know that methane makes up 16% of the total greenhouse gas emissions which are happening at this stage. And that has got 21 times of the global warming potential. And if we happen to control this, that will be around 25%, which is the single largest source, is the enteric fermentation in livestock. And that is mainly coming from the ruminants. So it's like 16% overall. Out of that, 40% is the agriculture, and from that 40%, 25% is alone ruminants enteric fermentation. So it's a lot. Yeah. And if so, in general terms, if you say it's around, a cow produces 200 to 300 liters a year of methane, and a sheep 20 to 30 liters a year. So yeah, we're trying to do our bit. And of course, there's other big sources of human activities which are doing it. So they need to really seriously cut down on that. But yes, from agriculture, we are doing our bit, and we're trying hard.
It is very interesting to hear you say that. But how much percentage is really, and I can really imagine that. Wow, like I never thought of it before, because it's such a huge industry, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just not about the carbon emissions, it's also about like the food sheep and cow they're eating. It's a lot of energy is going waste in the form of methane, which is of course a climate issue, but at the same time it's also a nutrition issue for the livestock industry. To like have that wasted in the form of methane. So yeah, it's both ways. It's going to be very, very useful if we do find the right genes and the right type of pasture.
How's it going so far, finding the right genes?
Well, it's a challenge, and yeah, we will get there for sure.
Yeah, great to hear. Now, as a young woman, and you are involving in such an intensive research, and I gather that sometimes you need to put long hours into doing your work.
Yeah.
And what are the challenges relating to your work-life balance that you're facing, and how do you manage that?
Well, alright, that's I think that's you become really creative when you come into this line, because this is not like a regular 9 to 5 sort of a job that you do, that you go to office 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock. That's all good. It's very flexible, so it's got some advantages but some disadvantages at the same time. Yes, it gets really hard to manage family and work and have a balance between the two. But yes, as I said, you got to get creative, and so yes, if you're not very creative, so maybe it's not the right area. But at the same time, if you don't like to do routine job 9 to 5 thing every day, and you like challenges, and you like to be challenged every day when you go to work, then yes, this is the area to go into.
And when it comes to young people, how hard are there a lot of young people working in the research kind of study?
Yes, they are, but in Australia, I have seen more like international people into this area as compared to the Australians themselves. And I was just reading an article the other day, and I saw that this guy says like it's still a perception in young people in here that it's all of it's a different world, but it is really not. It is a very interesting area to be associated with, and a great place to be. But yes, there's not much socializing, I think, happening in the science people going out too much, because there's so much into the work. They usually make friends within that community, and they're talking about it. So from the outside people, it's sort of like it's another world. It's a weird community out there. So
Okay.
I think it's just need to get talking, these two.
Yeah, and I believe that that's why we can see a lot of international scientists from overseas.
Yes, because not many young Australians joining this field, and yeah, it's a demand of the hour now that Australians come into this area, and they can do great job, I guess.
Wow, that's really interesting. It was, and then lastly, a few words from you regarding your work and to climate change as a whole.
Regarding my work, I think I have talked already a lot, but yes, I would like to say to all the listeners of the scope that it's nothing is impossible. Even the word impossible says I am possible. And if you really have a dream, then go for it and be persistent. And I always say the road to success is always under construction. So you got to follow your dreams.
Thank you very much, Dr. Parwinder, for coming and shared with the really interesting work that you do, and you also enlightening us about a little, in a nutshell, about the Australian livestock industry. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.